So this month's news has been crazy for the world of print on demand. Etsy was exposed by the UK Small Business Commission and forced to change their seller policies. Donald Trump's mugshot is being illegally sold on Etsy and making print on demand stores a lot of money. Printful has added in a new feature which makes making money on Amazon way easier than before. Midjourney has added in a new feature which makes creating the exact image that you want much easier. And ChatGPT is on the verge of going bankrupt. And they're also about to be sued by the New York Times, who could force them to have to wipe all of their data, which would effectively shut their app down. Seriously, did you think that this was a boring industry? If you did, think again, my friend. The news has been crazy, and I have rounded up all of the big stories so that you don't have to. So let's start off with our first Etsy news story, and that is Donald Trump's mugshot has been earning sellers a lot of money. And I mean a lot. So if you've been browsing Etsy, you might have noticed that Etsy stores on both sides of the political spectrum have been using this photo to sell merch. Well, MarketWatch reached out and they interviewed Etsy sellers who confirmed that it is indeed selling like crazy. One seller, Lauren, said, "My phone has been going ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching all morning," and confirmed that her t-shirt has had over 100 orders. That's a lot of orders in just a few days. However, like me, you might have read this and thought, is it legal to sell a photo that you didn't take? And well, Spectrum News 1 did an interview with a law professor and asked her this exact question. She said, "There is copyright ownership of mugshots in most jurisdictions. You're prohibited from using it for a number of things without authorization, such as selling it." However, she also said that copyright law is only enforced if the copyright holder chooses to sue, and that it's also reasonable to think that the Fulton County Sheriff's Office might think, this is a public document, it belongs to the world in a way, and we're not going to undertake the expense and trouble of hiring copyright counsel and sending out takedowns and cease and desist letters or lawsuits. So, in other words, is selling this photo illegal? Probably. But will the people who are selling this photo get into any trouble? Probably not. And speaking of Etsy, let's talk about how they were recently exposed and forced to change their seller policies. So, The Guardian, which is one of the biggest news outlets in the UK, this month did a big expose article on Etsy. They interviewed the UK Small Business Commissioner, Liz Barclay, who said that they were investigating Etsy due to a big increase in complaints in stores claiming that Etsy had, with no warning, placed a payment reserve on their store. And so a payment reserve, if you don't know, is when Etsy holds money that the customer pays until an item is shipped. So they usually do this with stores that they don't fully trust, such as new stores, but also stores that, for example, aren't shipping out items on time. For example, let's say that you were selling a t-shirt for $20 and Etsy had imposed a 75% reserve on your account, which is what it used to be. Well, that means that they would hold $15 of that order until you had shipped out your t-shirt, which can be brutal cash flow wise, because let's say that you were buying your t-shirts from Monster Digital on Printify for around $9. Well, $5 would not cover that, would it? So that is why when Etsy sellers like Alex started reporting that their stores that they thought were in good standing were suddenly having a reserve put on their account, they were not happy. One seller said that it happened with no warning, no explanation, and no possibility of them engaging in any dialogue about it. They've kept several £1,000s of my money, so I've had to borrow money to keep going. It's shockingly bad. And so a lot of stores got together and organized a boycott, and they put their stores into holiday mode to protest. And I'll be honest, I thought that nothing was going to come of it, but I was wrong. The next day after the expose article was published, Etsy reversed their policy. The head of Etsy Payments even posted an apology video and stated that they would remove the reserve on those affected stores. And that for all stores that still had a reserve on them, such as newly opened stores, that they would reduce most of them down to a 30% payment reserve instead of 75%, which was incredible. Now, I'll be honest, even if I had been hit by this, I wouldn't have cared. because I use credit cards to run my stores. When a customer orders from me, I pay for it with my credit card. Credit cards are great for print-on-demand businesses, as you usually have 3 to 4 weeks to pay them off, which is super easy because most print-on-demand providers ship out within 1 to 4 business days. Plus, you can do what I do and use a card with rewards, such as the Amex Platinum. Each time I buy an item for a customer, I get bonus reward points with this card. I then use these points to fly me and my family around the world in business class and first class. So if you can get a credit card, I highly recommend using it. However, I know that not everybody can get a credit card, and so I consider this apology and reversal a big win for sellers. And by the way, if you would like to learn how I and others run our print-on-demand businesses on autopilot to earn cash and credit card rewards, you should be sure to get a copy of my free ebook. You'll find a link to where you can get that ebook emailed to you for free in the video description below. But anyway, back to the video. So here is an exciting news update. You can now earn passive money on Amazon with Printful. So yes, there's now a new way to make money on Amazon. This past month, Printful has become an official software partner with Amazon. You can now create items with Printful and you can put them up for sale on Amazon, and when a customer buys them from you on there, Printful will automatically fulfill the order for you, which is really cool. And I'm actually really excited for this because I think it's going to give a lot of people who were previously rejected from Amazon's print-on-demand app a new way to be able to make money from their designs. Because for those of you that don't know, Amazon does have their own app, Amazon Merch on Demand, and I'm actually inside of it. I joined it to make this experiment video here a few years ago, and some of the t-shirts that I uploaded years ago, like this one, still sell and earn me passive money sometimes, which is actually pretty cool. But to join, you do have to fill out an application. Now, it used to be pretty easy to get accepted here, but it has become much harder and a lot of people do get rejected. And so if that was you, you now have a new way to be able to sell your designs on Amazon and get to take advantage of their hundreds of millions of customers. It is kind of complicated setting up an Amazon seller account though, and so if you do want to sell on here, I do highly recommend watching Printful's step-by-step video tutorial that they have made, which simplifies the process a lot. So then let's now discuss a new feature that Printify has added that a lot of people missed. Emojis. And I think this is actually really cool because something that a lot of people don't realize is that emojis are protected by copyright. So you can't just use any emoji installed in your device or an emoji that you find on the internet in your designs to sell, because that could get you copyright striked and get your store banned. So that is why Printify recently added in hundreds of free emojis that you're legally allowed to use. So just come and click on add text and select emojis, and then you can use these emojis legally in the designs that you sell without having to worry about getting a copyright strike. Alright, let's now discuss a huge new report that was recently released that shows that ChatGPT is broke and about to go bankrupt. Yep, so as much as I love ChatGPT, the truth is, its days may be numbered. So Analytics India magazine recently released a crazy report that they have compiled about how ChatGPT is currently on the way to going bankrupt. Basically, in June, ChatGPT's users massively declined. Now, at first, they blamed it on school summer holidays, since, well, we know at this point that students have been using ChatGPT to do their homework. But it's looking like it's an even bigger problem for the app because in July, the daily users declined again. And so it's looking like a much bigger issue. And this is actually really bad for ChatGPT financially because even when their user base was increasing in May, they were still losing lots of money. Insiders for ChatGPT estimated in May that ChatGPT was already making huge losses of up to $540 million. And the only way that they've been able to sustain these losses is because Microsoft has poured $10 billion into it. However, it's just not enough. The losses have also seemingly delayed the next version of the app, ChatGPT 5, because it turns out that Elon Musk has purchased 10,000 GPUs to build his own rival platform, which is called Truth GPT. So it's actually most likely competition from apps like this, and Meta's own rival app, Llama 2, which are causing users to decline. And because their competitors are purchasing the computer GPUs, that is pushing up their price too. And since ChatGPT is losing so much money from all of their debts, they currently can't afford them, which is why the report says they're currently on track to declare bankruptcy at the end of next year. It seems like this might let them refinance their debts so that they can afford to buy more GPUs, so that they can upgrade their app to its next version or versions. So that might keep them in the game for now, but honestly, it doesn't look great. The competition is quite fierce. So as much as I love ChatGPT and use it a lot, if I have to switch to a rival app, I will. However, it may not even come to that because ChatGPT might get shut down because of a major lawsuit that they are potentially facing. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, HelloFresh. No, I'm just kidding. Today's sponsor is me. Yes, I have sponsored my own video to let you know that if you are a beginner to print on demand, I have created a simple and easy step-by-step video course to help you create your own store from scratch. If you would like to see if my course is right for you, I'll have a link to it in the video description below. But for now, back to the ChatGPT news, and this is pretty big. ChatGPT is now facing a potential lawsuit from the New York Times that could wipe all of their data. Yep. So, the National Public Radio, NPR, recently interviewed 2 insiders within the New York Times that said their lawyers are considering bringing a major lawsuit against the app. They have been negotiating with OpenAI to charge licensing fees for incorporating their stories into the app, but negotiations are falling through. And if the New York Times did win, it could have huge repercussions. ChatGPT could be potentially ordered to rebuild their data set that they use to generate responses entirely from scratch, which would effectively delete their current data. That would basically shut them down, and so I'm not sure how they could recover from that. But look, I'm not a lawyer, but this does remind me a lot of the class action lawsuit that I reported on last month that the group of artists have brought against Midjourney for using their artwork to train their AI, which currently it looks like Midjourney is on track to win. But it's also quite different at the same time, so who do you think would win in this lawsuit? Let me know in the comments. And now, speaking of Midjourney, let's talk about Midjourney's new in-painting Very feature. So if you have been using Midjourney to generate images for your products, then you will definitely want to know about this new feature. So previously, if I had generated an image of a sausage dog and I wanted to add something into it, I would have had to have generated an entirely new image. But now, instead, I can come and click on the new Very region button. It opens up an image editor. You then select which section of the image that you want Midjourney to edit and update to add new elements to, and then you just type in the prompt of what you want it to add, and then Midjourney will take the existing image and paint into it the changes that you asked for. And I like it. It's a nice new feature that makes getting the exact image that you want even easier than before. So then, what do you think of the latest news updates? Let me know in the comments, and to catch up on the news of 2 other major lawsuits against Redbubble and Midjourney, be sure to watch my other news video here on screen. I'll see you in the next video.